Welcome to episode 4 of Design with Grimes. I'm Jordan Grimes. I use this space to talk about my design projects, perspectives, and my process. Today's a special one. It's the first project debrief from Rebrand. Short Courts is the feature today. And if you're interested in following me and my sports and design commentary and my work as well, you can find me on Twitter at J7Grimes. But like I said, the feature today is on Short Court. So if you're checking out the screen, I have his Twitter handles his social media stuff for Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Cue that up in another tab. Tristan's got a bunch of great stuff going on there, but I do want to welcome Tristan to the show to talk about his product and everything. So Tristan, thanks for coming on. If you want to talk about what Short Courts is, how you started, and things like that, please.
So the main line of theory that everybody gives me, or the joke that's been played a million times, is, oh, you clearly just make courts for ants, right? And it's like, well, yeah. But it started when I just randomly look on, Craigslist or Mercari and look for random sports artifacts. And somebody had an Illinois State beer pong table. Well, I didn't want the beer pong portion, but they had the court on there. And I thought, well, I'd love to buy that. I'm just going to lop the ends off. And they said, well, I want such and such money. I thought, I'll just do it myself. And then I figured it was a nice hobby, gave me a challenge. And then after I posted it online, everybody just it got great reception. And I've just been getting requests ever since.
Love that. Innovation at its best, right? When you can't find it, you just do it yourself. It's so, I love the product. Love the, you hand do all that stuff, right? So I got a couple of pictures here, but like I said, with all the social media stuff he has videos and process of the close-ups of it. So check that out. Got my own court. So love that part of it as well. We might get into that later, but yeah, we had multiple conversations and I want to get into those, but here's a sneak peek of where we ended up, but let's take a big step back to actually look at where we started. And so some of the goals that we set out at the get-go of the project was to create something that's legible, flexible, and familiar, and to talk to some of those points as well for legibility, making sure that the logos and the series that we create at different sizes are legible. So, with branding and brands, you need to be readable and legible in different spots, no matter where you are. So that was like one of the first major points. And then in terms of flexibility, something cool that Tristan does is when he's collaborating with a team court or what have you, he actually swaps out some of the logo elements from his with the actual team. So making sure it's flexible to fit into that. And the last point is familiar. And so with familiarity, making sure that this isn't something to start, something that our audience is going to recognize and love for a long time. I will get into some of these goals and bullet points as we get into this when I start showing the work, but let's actually get into the initial start of the project, which is research, doing research on different basketball themes and stuff like that. So basketball courts and anatomy and the history of stuff, in terms of like ABA, the American Basketball Association, and the teams in that league in that era, but also like iconic courts and iconic moments, Jordan and Boston and all that stuff. We love it. And so take an inventory of that, but then also take an inventory of, current NBA logos and historical logos and all those things. It's all part of it, just setting the foundation for it. And so one of the things that Tristan and I did talk about early on was his audience, and something that was really interesting was like the nostalgia and like the memorabilia aspect of it. So I'm going to kick it over to Tristan and kind of talk about, who the typical audience is and things that he hears from them when they get to talking about courts.
Yeah, there's one of the things that I never really had expected to become such a big thing as it was. When I first started making them, it was just like, oh yeah, I make courts of whatever's current. And then I started getting a few more requests of people just wanting to relive their college days or wanting to buy a gift for their dad that is from their college. And so I've made courts now that go as far as back as the University of Tennessee, before the 3-point line, and things like that. And it's such a unique idea, because those courts no longer exist. And now you are one of the only people that still has like a tangible portion of that era or that memory, I guess, if you want to think about it. So it's definitely something that I didn't see, but I love the idea of bringing something back to life. So it's a very, very cool request when I get those.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you would also say they're passionate about this stuff, right? You know, it's getting the details right. And, you know, it's an awesome thing to receive. And so, yeah. So after getting more of that foundational work done with those things, learning about the audience and the space, time to get into the sketchbook for me. So really pushing and pulling different concepts that might work for the Short Courts brand. So script was one of the first things that I tried to get into, and also not forgetting where Tristan started. One of the things, if you remember looking at the original logo, was that SC monogram, that lockup. So I'm trying to also maybe figure out how I can, you know, carry that over to some degree. So you'll see some of that in the initial sketches and all that. But here have some script marks. Love how they stack and modulate and those things. But also if you look in the middle left, I have like this basketball frame and how the type might fit into there as well. So just playing around with different compositions. Also here, just, yeah, again, more compositions. How can this live stacked or in different shapes and all that stuff. And then the last set of sketches here, again, just more of the same, but just really pulling from inspiration and research and those things. That's when I turn to the computer. We get into round one of all the logos, and typically I like to stay around 3 to 5, you know, concepts for, you know, the first round of it. Typically stay in black and white just so it's really clean and clear for the delivery of round one. But this one, there are so many different avenues. I have 10 different concepts in round one that I had to present. And Tristan and I met multiple times, but it was one of those things where as designers, we are supposed to, you know, make these decisions, narrow things down in the background to present the best work. And I agree with that. But also at the same time, if you have possible nuggets that you're unsure about, yeah, sure, present them. That's why I had so many options in round one. Was like, hey, this might work, or I might be missing something else here that Tristan might be able to talk to or have ideas about. And so I didn't want to discount stuff so early. So 10 concepts in the first round. The first 5 are here. So you have crossover, which again has that SC monogram thing going on. You have banner. That's me trying to distill the idea about championship banners and just history. You have school ball. This one is fun, just thinking about when you go to a park where the basketball hoop doesn't have a net and those types of things. So that's like unique. Assist is again a vector of that script mark, and then half court, trying to distill and diagnose like the anatomy of a court and bring it to life, right? And so any comments on this first 5 before I get into the second 5, Tristan?
No, it's just I remember the first time you sent these over, and I was already just looking at the first 5, blown away. And you know, you look at, I had the old one made into a wall piece there, and you look at just how bland and just overly complicated that was, right? And I just kind of slapped that together. I'm not a designer, and then I see these are just like ideas you had, and I was just blown away. I loved all the different avenues you went with it, with like the basketball backboard and the crossover. It has it look almost like the lines of the basketball, and then you look at half court, and it's very similar to some of those NBA designs now. Like they're all very round, and I just immediately was like, that thing has to go. I don't, this is so far outdated. I can't wait to move forward with any of these. So.
Yeah, we're on to something, right? And so yeah, first 5, and then the second 5, more of the same, but just again, different avenues of where this could possibly go. So more, you know, basketball motifs with you know, hoops and shapes and all that stuff, right? And so these next 5 were interesting. And so what happened after these 5 is trying to distill it down. Round 2 is where you really refine and bring forward the things that are working. And also in this round, what I wanted to introduce was color as well. That's a big part of it. It can flip the field, if you will, on how something is or isn't working once you start to actually introduce color. And to comment about this really quickly, I had just 3 simple colors to introduce here at round 2. The first one being like a classic cream, the second being like a b-ball orange, and then the bottom right, tradition black. So traditional black, that's coming from, you know, carrying over from Tristan's, you know, origins of the original brand. And also, you know, black is a through line for many brands, right? It's a foundational piece. And so how does that come to life in the second round? Here we go. There was some you know, touch points between round 1 and 2, but we went from 10 down to like 3 to 5, right? And so the first 3 were here. We had school ball on the left. This one iteration, obviously the color, but also getting the basketball shape in the primary. And just a note, looking at this page, the primary logos are all on the top, and then right below them would be the secondary logos of how that could evolve into a smaller scale. And so I'm looking at the middle now. You have the basketball hoop attaching to the tee. It kind of looks like, if you look at a profile 3-pointer, maybe Steph Curry's looking here to drain another one. And so that was interesting to kind of combine that, get that word mark happening in that way. And what I liked about the middle was how it evolved into the secondary marks. Those are something that we both were intrigued by. And then the third one all the way to the right half court, it's fun because you have like this duality and contrast and color and type and these things happening in the primary mark, and then it gets more simple in that secondary basketball mark in the bottom right. And I know that was something that you liked pretty much too, correct, Tristan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any of these secondary marks, like you could see them being a perfect fit for anything on social media. So it was the primaries are great, but then most of what everybody's going to see, where I spend most of my time, is social media, and then all of these I could easily see myself slapping on there and be more than happy with. So
yeah, exactly. And to make matters worse, or to make decisions harder, we had these to figure out, but also we're spinning with the idea of making a faux back concept. So turn back the fake clock. And so we already talked about Tristan's original logo. That's the only logo he's had. So we were thinking about creating a fake throwback logo set that Tristan would use in certain situations. What we talked about earlier was nostalgic audience and these things, right? Getting courts made that were alive years ago but aren't current today. The idea behind this secondary mark would be that for those courts, those historical courts, I guess we'll call them, Tristan would flip his branding to match it in a way. So like his branding would match and turn back the clock, if you will, along with the court that he is doing. And so we had two concepts that could possibly work for that. And that's what you see here. The top again is primary, and then secondary would be something right down below. And so this is an interesting idea, right, Tristan? We're getting pretty deep on this. It was a fun experiment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how we came to that idea, but it was just the idea of, hey, all of a sudden it creates an identity where, hey, I see they changed. They must be working on something else, or this must be an old court. What are they doing? Like, and it kind of would draw a little bit of intrigue to it, I suppose. But then as the more we talked about it, the more we had both came to the same idea that, like, do I really want to spend, what if I forget to? And then I got to make sure I'm doing everything. Like, am I going to change my email banner? Am I going to? And it got to feel like it, while fun idea, just being one person, it felt like a little bit of a tedious task.
Double the work, two brands in one essentially at that point, right? And so, like you said, it's fun on the front end, like the visual side, but then think about the back end and the work it would take to do that, at random times during the year. Definitely it's a workload, right? And so I think where this came from was just like, we were trying to narrow down the ideas, and we're like, well, what if we carried this one over as like a faux back idea? And so that's where I think it came from. But I think we made the right decision to kind of focus, right? And so it was great to have all the ideas, but you have to move on. You have to make decisions, and that's where round 3 comes into place. And so with round 3, we went with school ball as like the primary. And what's fun about this one was we merged a couple things. And so we cleaned up the primary with the color and the weight and things like that. And we brought the secondary mark over from one of the other concepts, and I matched the font and some of the characteristics. One of those being like the drop shadow on the ball. It's similar to some of the line work that's happening in the primary mark. And then I haven't gotten to this yet, so I'm excited to talk about it, but these combination marks. So Tristan has obviously his own branding, but also when he gets to working on, the Bulls or the Lakers or Tar Heels, whatever court it is, how can he flip his logo to match that? And he did some current stuff already previously with, courts that he did, and how he can, flip his original logo to match it. And so how could this new set of logos do the same thing, but better, right? And so with the simple color change and logo change with this concept, it came to be like this. So that was super exciting. Any thoughts on this runner-up concept?
No, I think it worked very well. I mean, like the way the combination logo is just easily two primary colors and just
Yep.
a logo in there. Like there's the perfect spot for it. There's, the secondary logo, it's very just eye-catching, screams basketball, and the primary just kind of still gives you a little bit of that nostalgia, because the only time you see those is on the playground, and you can hear the clang of it hitting off the backboard, right? But I loved how this one adapted to the combination for sure, and it just reminds me how difficult this
is. Exactly. You got that right. And I think the last thing I had on this, Mark, what I was holding on to at least was, in basketball, in terms of the player jerseys, when you have a really long name, if it's so long, they have to literally arc it across the number, right? And so I love how I combined that idea with this to kind of fit a longer name within a shorter space, right? And so I love, that through line of basketball and different elements here. But it was fun while it lasted in terms of, thinking about this one. Basically, the backup we had on this, the retro aspect of it in round 3 was to have something like this. So carrying over the colors, but again, having like that retro feel to it. So you have this geometric font happening, the basketball and the primary, and then the secondary merging the C and the basketball as well. And so decisions have to be made, like we were saying. And so at that point, once we looked at the runner-up and that retro idea, we're like, okay, we actually would like to actually just focus on one, and that being the retro. And so with that in mind, I had to kind of retool how this is working. So instead of that original color palette happening, let's actually lean on something like the ABA. So the blue, white, and red. That's happening. The font is already working. It's geometric. It feels nostalgic and retro. So that was working for us, but it wasn't too far gone that it felt out of date, right? This has to be timeless in a sense and work with different things. And so color scheme in mind, and that I got to working on the type. And so I'm going to really focus and nerd out here a little bit on some of these design characteristics for the logo type. So this is Bauhaus 93, standardly typed out, no iterations or alterations done to it yet, but I had to tweak it for this brand. And so first thing I did, remove the counter, the center part of the O in Court. So remove that. And then I turned my attention to the H and the R's. It has like this stencil effect where the letter is cut off at certain points. For me, it was, causing a distraction. I wanted to fill those areas and also get more details with the basketball. So here is how that looks and how that evolved. And then this is kind of spaced out. Let's, scrunch it together. So tracking and kerning in different spots to really refine and finesse the mark here. And then I think the magic part for me on this one was how the C and the O, the basketball, if you will, interact. So you see how the C actually blends into the basketball lines and all that. Let's actually focus in on that. I think that's really where this all came to fruition for me in this concept. So that was super exciting. And let's jump forward and see how it actually all came to be. So here's the primary horizontal logo. Again, colors and type all working here in a nice dog-eared shape. So that's good on white. And then you look at it against the color, still working, get really nice contrast here. If you want to stack it for shorter or more like square-ish applications, definitely can do that. Again, same characteristics with color. You have this nice outline happening as well. See it on color. And then that secondary mark, it's almost as I don't want to call it secondary because it is so crucial because it's working as an avatar and in other small spaces, but we really had to make this work. And I think we had a really good start originally on this one with the C and the basketball, but Tristan challenged me, hey, can we get an S in there somehow? I was like, oh yeah, let's see what we can do, right? So I tried different combinations and formations and ultimately, centering it and finessing some of the colorway here. We're able to make sure it's legible, but also it still works, right? You don't see too many things happening at one time. So you see it on color, and then you see it against a nice, the primary blue background as well. And so here's the color set. Here's the logo set and the different formations it has. And again, getting back to the project goals, this has to be flexible, legible, familiar, all these things. And, with the way that Tristan uses his branding elements, sure, it's digital, but also he has that physical part of it as well with applying it to the court. So can you talk a little bit about that, Tristan, in terms of your process of actually applying your logo physically and even digitally, if you want?
Yeah, so usually when I finish up a court, the last thing I'll do is I'll put the Short Courts logo on the back, social media, email, things like that. And I would find myself with that old logo just almost dreading having to put that on the back of the court, because it would just be so tedious. There's a lot of like fine lines, and there's a lot of just fine text, and it would take me sometimes like 30 minutes to do all of that. And it was just something that became more of a chore, but I couldn't skip it, right? I wanted to make sure it was on the back and it was branded as my piece. And I wanted to find a way. That was one of the things, like you'd mentioned, how can we make it easy to apply? And then the first time you had ever sent these to me, I think I applied all 3 of these logos in 5 minutes, and I could not have been happier. I was just tickled pink at the idea that, oh, I'm going to save so much time. I don't have to dread doing this. And it's just, it looks fantastic. It's clean, it's simple, and it just stands out.
Love it. Love that that came through. And I think you said originally, like you said, all the fine details in your original logo, that was like a 15 to 20 minute process versus maybe 5 minutes on this. Is that, that correct?
So
crazy. Yeah.
A pain in the butt.
Time save, and it's looking better, right? I mean, that's all good. And so that's for the primary marks. But again, I think where this really starts to shine is when you start to use the combination mark and the combination power of this logo set. So simply changing the color and using the O in quartz, almost like an avatar space. You can just pop in that team logo and look at all these different variations quickly that you can come up with, and that Tristan has at his disposal to really customize and level up that experience of the courts that he's building. So again, he has these cool courts, like, I don't know, the iconic Chicago Bulls, maybe. Like, how cool would it be to combine the mark here and all that? What are some of the favorite courts that you've created, Tristan?
Well, I think it has to be like that one, right? That one I got for myself there in the back. There was an NC State court I did that I really enjoyed a long time ago.
Go Wolfpack.
I just finished up 2 of them that are probably 2 of my more recent favorites too, St. Bonaventure, and then I did an old Mecca from Milwaukee, and I added a little bit about Marquette and their national championship, because that court is just, I mean, it really is art. I mean, they paid to come in and do it, and I found myself, even after I made it, like, oh, this was going to be tough to give away. Like, I could like this, but I mean, at the end of the day, I love, like, I learned to love every one of them because of the process, but some of them are just the color schemes, I don't know, just the way everything lays out. You find yourself going, it's not just something that they play basketball on. Like, there's actual thought and artistic ideology that goes into it.
Exactly. When you start to really break it down, you start to really honor what's going on there with the details that were made and decisions and these things, right? And you get to live it and apply it or whatever, right? So yeah, super cool. I think I challenged you for the first time on the parquet version of the court. Like, I was like, I was mixing a whole bunch of different things, and you made it work. So super happy with how that turned out.
I gotta say, I love the challenge. That one looks great. I love the challenge of it. What was it, 608 individual oak squares that go on that course? It looks fantastic.
It does. And you have the video to prove it, right? It's not just you saying it's like, oh yeah, I bought this, whatever. No, you individually laid them out. You've got video proof. I've got the physical proof. But super cool. Love it all. And so again, trying to make sure that this branding stuff works on a large level and a small level. First things first is like the digital application. So you see the secondary mark used as the avatar here. You got to think about how it's going to work smaller too, right? And so it does translate well. It's still legible and all these things. And I've gotten some good feedback. I've had some reach out of people that have seen the project. How about you? How has this been received when you put it out there to the world?
I have gotten nothing but positive reviews. Like, everybody has loved it. I think it fits more of my style of how I interact with people on Twitter and how I approach. Like, it's not all business. Like, it is kind of a fun thing. And I think this brand that you created kind of highlights that idea. It doesn't feel that old logo felt a little more formal, and everyone I've talked to says just loves it. Like, you knocked it out of the park. Could not have done any better of a job. I love it.
Yeah, great to hear. And like I said, I wanted to bring, character to your brand, right? The brand, I'm helping with your brand identity, so the visual part, but you are the brand, right? Like that emotional feeling people get when they think and see how you interact. Like if you even look at the first line of your Twitter, I make basketball courts for ants. Like what? So it might take it literally at first, but no, that's just like your character and what you bring to the table. So that's really fun. Yeah, it was a great project to work on. So yeah, just kind of in a wrap up here. Definitely, like I said before, check out Tristan and on his social media handles here. So Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Check out his process, work, videos, things that he's working on. Super excited to stay in tune there. It was a great project. I want to thank you Tristan, for trusting me with the brand update here. It was a fun project. You can definitely check out the brand page. So I have some of these assets and some of the storyline through all this on my website, jordangrimes.work. But also, if you want to listen to me talk about design or sports and all that, I am on Twitter as well, at J7Grimes. This is my first like brand debrief and those types of things video. So definitely subscribe, like, comment on how this has been received from you, and looking to iterate and improve in the future. Again, thank you, Tristan. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Design with Grimes.